Basically, I went over to Latvia with the British Council, and I did it with Pete the Temp, so it was 2 of us for this White Night Festival, which they have in every country in Europe apart from the UK. It really annoys me. And they open up all the cities at night, and it's sort of from midnight until 9 o'clock in the morning, and we had to do workshops as part of it. So I sort of wanted to do a workshop about how slam poetry and just poetry in general doesn't have to be really loud and always political and always shouting, that kind of thing that you see a lot on kind of from slams especially. So I got everyone to kind of sit and stare at a strawberry and lick the strawberry and then eat it and write poems while they were like sniffing it and while they were eating it, and then they had to sort of sit in a line and try to read their poem in different ways, so like 1-to-1, whisper it into people's ears, whisper it into people, so just to have it like a bit more intimate rather than just very shouty. But it was good, it was really good, because Pete the Temp came as well, and he's really amazing at the performance side of things and using his voice so well in different ways, and I'm rubbish at that stuff. So he did this workshop about that, and then I came in and did the complete opposite, like just whisper, keep it quiet, look at small details and stuff. But it was really nice.
But what different types of things did the people say?
They just said it was really good to get a balance. There he is. I'm just talking about you, actually. I'm talking about the strawberry workshop in Latvia and how it was. Pete did the workshop, actually. He came into the workshop.
It was a very sensual experience in which I got to whisper sensual strawberry poetry into the ear of a beautiful Latvian lady. Thank you for facilitating that.
No
Anytime
problem.
you're doing it again, let me know. Oh, and the poetry was great as well.
The poetry that they wrote?
The poetry stuff was good in it, yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Also, I did force them to do it in the workshop. It wasn't.
I was forced to do it. I didn't want to whisper poetry about strawberry into the ears of this beautiful young Latvian lady. No, I was forced.
And she was 25.
And single, I think.
Yeah. But it was brilliant,
It's a Baltic nation, and they are between Lithuania and Estonia, and they like poetry in a way that an adolescent likes members of the opposite sex, or in the way that a 4-year-old likes sugar, or in a way that a 7-year-old likes saying why, or in a way that a 70-year-old likes napping, like that.
Yeah, it quite often happens. I thought the UK would be really sort of good with the whole poetry scene, but actually go to other countries. I went to Poland, Australia, and it's just so well organised. Germany, actually, I can't believe I didn't mention Germany. Germany's just so organised with their open mic nights and their poetry gigs, and really brilliant scene for poetry. So yeah, we need to catch up.
We need to learn.
We do.
Do you notice like a different mentality of the different nations?
In terms of poetry, or?
Yeah, in terms of the content.
I kind of notice it a tiny bit, but in general I think there's so many different types of poetry in every country, and it's the same. Like I went to Germany, and there are people doing really serious stuff, very political, very heartfelt, very funny, and it's the same in England, I think. I guess I've got a stereotype of sort of German poetry as being funnier, but I think that's just because the 4 poetry, like spoken poetry nights that I went to, they were really kind of witty, dry sense of humour, really funny, I found. But, I only saw, 20 poets, and there's quite a few of them in the country.
I'm always surprised how it communicates across nationalities and people, because, I mean, there is a global slam family of people giving and receiving ideas, emotions and experiences, and those things are universal. And we all feel shit, and so those, when people put it into words, we can all relate to it.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing about this art form, is that people are sharing in a way that builds communities, and that's a great way to create bridges internationally.
Yeah.
Somebody should put me in the UN. I could be like a spoken word. If anybody from the UN is listening or watching, if you're listening in there or watching in there, I'm a poet. I could do with a bit more money. I'd quite like to travel to Angola in a jet plane and come off the plane performing poetry as part of my role. So just consider it. I've got a CV and a PDF.
You're so funny.
I'm not being funny, I'm deadly serious.
I know. Okay, sorry.
What would be your, Holly, what would be your dream? And the Angola scene.
In terms of poetry,
Yeah, no, in terms of like what Pete's just said about Angola.
I don't really know what country I would like to go to. Like I don't really know what my dream. At the moment, I just feel like I've been in a haze of motherhood, and the poetry's sort of taken on, and doing loads of gigs whilst trying to get back and get kids into school and stuff. So yeah, I haven't really thought too much. Like I'd really like to do stuff that was in more mainstream places. I don't know. A lot of the time you go to festivals and gigs, and the poetry is sort of like through the hall, down the corridor, down the stairs, in the back room, like shoved down the back. And I wish it was in sort of more mainstream areas rather than always in niche poetry tents. Or saying that, there are amazing festivals like Latitude Poetry Tent's massive, and it's one of the kind of main ones at the festival. But a lot of the others sort of no one seems to sort of take the plunge and just like stick on a poet in between two main singers or bands. And I think that would be a really cool place to put spoken word, rather than always having it in its own small place where you have to already be interested to go and see it. I think that's what I'd like to see. Like, I see some amazing poets, and I just wish sometimes when I see them like rigging the stage for two big artists on a stage, I'm like, instead of just having people leave, why don't you just put a poet on for 10 minutes and then people will stay, and then that would be my call out.
And it works.
Yeah,
and it works.
And it would be great.
And you can have poets performing in front of tens of thousands of people. It has been done.
Yeah.
And it can work.
And all it does is replace either a compare or a 10 minutes of nothing, of changing electronics on stage. Yeah. Serious look.
Yeah.
Stroke your beard. If you got a beard and you're a poet, now's the time to stroke it.
We did that once. There was like a band competition in Cambridge, and they said, "Oh, do you want to do some poetry in like the other room?" And then we were like, "Not really, because no one will go in there." And put poets on in between the bands, and it worked really well. And everyone was really worried about it because they thought the audience was going to hate it, or that you're going to get echoed, but nothing happened. They just, stood and liked being entertained for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, as long as the most tragic thing is when a compere says, "And now we're going to have some poetry," and you just see everybody go, "Oh," and just fall asleep, or just get up and walk out. I think they should just not use the P word. Just say, "Now we're going to have some words. Somebody's going to come and he's a words man," and that'd be like a little bit ambiguous. I'm like, "Oh, I've never experienced words before. It's a new art form called words." And then we'll come on and go, "Wow, what's that? It's actually really poetry." Oh, wow.
Yeah, poetry's like a dirty word, huh? I still think to use it. I feel like it should always be used, because somebody said to me, "Oh, don't call yourself a poet." It's when I was doing a summer school, and they put up a poster to try and attract some young people to come to this summer school, and it was poetry, and we were going through like 5 different museums and getting them to write poems about different collections. And they put together a poster for it, and they said, like, Hollie McNish is going to teach you how to rap, beatbox, do spoken word. I was like, I can't rap, I can't beatbox. That's like a skill. These things are skills that I do not have. I was like, you haven't put poetry up. She was like, yeah, but I didn't think it was, a very cool word to put up. I was like, right, I do write poetry. Like, that's what it is. Just
well, if we're going to reclaim the word poetry, we need to reclaim it from from academia, because too many people think poetry is really obscure crossword style distilled page thing.
But it can be.
It can be, but that's what most people's association of poetry is. So if we're going to use the word poetry, then we need to make it more exciting and more accessible, or more better known than what people conventionally consider poetry to be.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it?
I'm going to call myself a poet.
Okay.
Because I didn't do that.
That's enough. If you're calling yourself a poet, I'm sold. I'm a poet too. Can I show you something?
No, I just mean, like, I never would ever say that I was a poet or I did poetry, because I was always embarrassed because it's not as good, or it's not as, like, full of imagery or full of, I don't know, what I thought poetry should be. So I would always say, "Oh, I'm a spoken word artist person," and then I think it was Ray who was like, "Holly, just call it poetry because that's what it is." So, not that that's going to do much. I'll have a think.
Semantics. Don't get poets started on semantics. What is it? What are we? We're having an existential crisis here, aren't we? We're just words, people. Sounds coming out of our mouths, meaning things. Camera in my face. Well, we've talked about the workshop in Latvia, haven't we? The strawberry.
The most exciting thing for me was when I was doing a gig at Kate Tempest's book launch, and I really love her stuff, and I went to do the gig and my daughter ran onto the stage and then saw that there were loads of people and stopped like this and then sort of ran off again. I know that's not exciting in poetry terms, but it's quite exciting for me for my daughter to come on the stage. I reckon in poetry terms, maybe like this year I had a few people that already knew my poem when I said the title, and that was a little bit exciting.
How many people were in that audience that day?
It was at Glastonbury, so there was quite a lot. So I said the title of a poem, and a few people went, "Yeah, I like that one." I was like, "Oh." So that's never happened before, that people knew it, which is quite cool. I thought it was quite cool. But not as cool as a 2-year-old running onto the stage. That was better.
Did you script that? I mean, did you rehearse that? Did you when I say this, you've got to run on, right?
No.
Or you're not getting your Cheerios.
I don't give my daughter Cheerios.
Right, sorry.
Only for pudding. What was the most important thing?
I think probably the most exciting thing I did this year was performing a poem in front of 2,000 people in Glastonbury.
Wow.
In Shangri-La on the Hell stage with a band called Slamboree, a pyro circus rave band, and they have kind of jugglers and acrobats and fire pyro people come on, as part
Amazing.
of their whole act. And then they get me, so they get poetry as well, rave poetry, you could say.
Wow.
And it works, and it's nice. People calling out the words of the poem as I'm performing it. It's like, oh yeah. So that was quite gratifying. I mean, they didn't know who I was, and they didn't come to see me. And when I left, they probably still didn't know who I was, but they enjoyed it nonetheless.
That's the important
That's
thing.
the important thing. So that was nice.